All right, we are live. Good to see you today, my EOS friends. Welcome to the EOS podcast. Today we have Matt, who has an awesome YouTube channel himself and has a really cool EOS story. We're going to get into all that. And then also is a part of the Trybe.One team, a social media DApp that is launching and is launched on the EOS blockchain. So this is going to be a really interesting conversation, I can already tell you guys. So Matt, why don't you introduce yourself and then jump into what you think the most exciting thing going on in EOS right now is.
For sure. First of all, I just want to say thanks for having me, man. I've been a huge fan of your show for a long time. I think you do a heck of a job, and man, you work hard.
Thanks, man.
I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I don't consume as much content as I want to, but when I do consume content, a lot of it is yours. So I'm a huge fan, and it's awesome just to be here and just kind of talk to you today about EOS. It's cool. Glad to be here.
For sure. And we were chopping it up about EOS a little bit before we even started recording. And, it's just for both of us is it kind of infinitely interesting and there's so much going on. So, it's cool to talk about it. That's why I love doing the podcast. I can talk about EOS every day. So that's rad. What's your favorite thing going on right now? Or kind of what gets you most excited when you start thinking about EOS?
Oh man, there's so many things. Like I'm the same as you. Like I love this space, and I live for this. The moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, it's all EOS every single day. I see a lot of cool things going on. I think like one of my favorite things that really brought me into EOS is a lot of these, the DAC models that we're seeing, decentralized autonomous communities, and the way that EOS isn't just moving money around anymore. Like we've kind of all been in this kind of stigmatized thing where like crypto is for moving cash or for moving assets around. And just since I kind of fell into the EOS rabbit hole, I've just seen some really cool things that have really kind of shown me the potential. What we're doing it's not just about banks, borderless transactions anymore. And one of the things that's really captured my imagination is like the DAC model. I think that before I really hit EOS, I know it's existed for a while, but I didn't really have like a great scope of what a DAC was. And I just think it's cool the way that we're using this new model to kind of form these little societies that are doing different things. I mean, EOS DAC, for example, there's a lot of other really cool DACs that are starting up. There's a lot of other cool DACs out there. And I just think that it's neat because it breaks all traditional financial models and the way that we think about money and the way we think about governance and the way that we think that things should run. In terms of like, if you're asking like, what's my favorite project out there? There's just so many going on, man, that I love. Of course, being a part of Trybe, I'm going to obviously plug that, but I'm seeing a lot of really, really cool things pop up in the EOS space. And I'm fortunate enough, much like yourself, to talk to a lot of different people about them. And of course, DACs, I think DACs are absolutely fascinating, the way that we're kind of changing the way that we transact not only with money, but with each other from this like new way that we've instituted like a governance model. There's a ton of projects out there that I love. There's a ton of cool things. And like we were just talking about before this chat, I think for me, the most interesting thing is that, man, we're just getting started. You know what I mean? Like everybody's like, well, EOS is up. And like we were just saying, and we're just building, we're just starting to build some of these new DApps, and we haven't even scratched the surface of what EOS is capable of doing. I really, I'm really interested in Warbly as well for a lot of different reasons, because I think that, of course, I'm pro decentralization, and I know that Warbly kind of they have that roadmap to do so. But I think that we need a fiat gateway. We need to make it a little bit more accessible for kind of grandma and our sister and our uncle and our brother who hasn't heard about cryptocurrency before, to be able to get into the landscape. And I always kind of refer to that as the Trojan horse, man, because if people can just find a safe way into an insured wallet, they're in the ecosystem and they can really go anywhere from there. So if they want to move to kind of more decentralized applications, they can do so. What about you, Brandon? What do you have your eyes on? I want to ask you, because what's really interesting.
When you talked about DACs, that kind of started setting off lights in my head as one of the big things that I'm interested in, because it's like this next layer of use case for blockchain that has so many applications that it can be this. It's now a way that I use to describe to people brand new to blockchain what blockchain is. I just kind of give them a real world example of what a DAC might look like, and then it kind of takes away all the things that people don't understand about blockchain. And a lot of time, I mean, for blockchain adoption, we need to have this just real simple use case where people don't even know they're using the blockchain. So anyway, how I started describing blockchain to people that are brand new that are clearly don't want to get into it. I say, okay, well, picture something like Facebook, and you realize that when you generate content on Facebook, that somehow generates money, right? And yeah, okay. Well, now imagine if Facebook were not a company, but it were basically a computer program, and those funds were somehow distributed back to all the users, the people creating the value, and that's kind of what a DAC is in a really simplified terms. And then the kind of light bulb goes off. Oh, okay. And then, or you say, well, imagine Uber, but instead of Uber being a company, it's a computer algorithm. And now all of the drivers own a part of that company essentially, or they get some rewards when the company grows. And then so DAC has been this way for me to really just simplify and give real world examples to people of the possibility of blockchain. And that, I think, that really use case where people don't know they're using it is where blockchain gets adoption. So I think that's one of the most exciting things to me, is the thought of the potential of decentralized autonomous corporations. And that's where I'm big. The cross-chain swaps, basically, or the cross-chain interoperability, where coins can basically, the EOS coin can go into all these different chains and operate within them, is really interesting. But it's still at a phase where it's kind of this really intellectual idea, and I haven't really wrapped my head around what these great use cases, like how that's going to really affect me in the real world. So I know that's something big. I'm just not smart enough to understand why yet. So I like that as well. So yeah, and then all the different chains that are popping up. I mean, Talos, and you mentioned EOS Black and Warbly, these sister chains. The first guttural reaction is kind of be like, no, I want the EOS chain to win. But this was the vision all along, is this main chain with these side chains. And so those are kind of the bigger picture things that I'm interested about.
Yeah, you actually mentioned something, and you're right. Like it was even Dan Laramers who said to Thomas Cox, like, I thought there would be hundreds of chains by now. They really believe that. You mentioned something which really kind of like strikes a chord with me, and this is one of the reasons why I love EOS. You talked about information and the way that that Facebook monetizes your content and other people monetize your content. And I think like the thing that I really love about EOS is the fact that, man, we've been taken advantage of for a long time by banks, by social applications, you know what I mean? By Twitter. Every time you enter a single forum on the internet, you give your information away. And the thing that I really love about EOS is that there's so many cool new ways that they're kind of like taking the power back. Like there's a huge industry for information alone. I mean, you've seen the recent things with Facebook, and people have been taking that money for a long time, and they've just been kind of pocketing it. And I think that EOS is a representation to me of like finally this equalizer, this way to take some of that back, man, and put it in the pocket of the people who deserve it. So I think that EOS kind of represents this new, and blockchain generally just represents this new way of like just people standing up and saying enough. I'm sick of the abuse. I love that.
Yeah, and it gives this vehicle where before I've had kind of that feeling before, but there wasn't this way to like get a toehold in and hold on and be like, hold on, here's somewhere I can actually make a stand that makes some sort of difference. With EOS and with blockchain, with blockchain, it was kind of like, oh, maybe this will work, but it didn't feel like it was making this progress. We just had money. With EOS, it gives this thing that we kind of have put a stake in the ground, and we like are putting kind of a stop here, and then we're going to slowly like gain little parts of our freedom back, or little parts of our, our property or our identity or our, the value that we're creating. It seems like we've stopped the bleeding basically, and we're going to slowly inch back, like piece by piece, all these different parts of that we've lost the internet. The original concept of the internet, and when it first came out, it was this, it's going to change the world and free the people basically, and it was this ideal. There was this idealism around it, I think, in the same way that there is with blockchain. But somewhere along the way, it was kind of changed to a tool for even more control, which is kind of funny or not funny, but that's the way that the world can work if the incentives aren't built right. So that's the cool thing about blockchain, is it's built so that it can kind of lead towards that original goal of the internet. So yeah, I'm totally on board with that thought, that it does feel empowering to be working on. So that's why I, like you, work on it so much, is because it just feels like I'm in a spot I want to be. It feels like I'm doing the right thing. I like it. Yeah, it's
different. It's cool. One of the projects that really opened my eyes to the way that our privacy has been abused is eDNA. Just like, man, like those 23andMe and like some of these tests that people take for genetics online, the stuff that they do with that information is scary, man. So it's like, it's a cool way of like just giving people like a little shake, like wake up, man. You know what I mean? And like take some of the power back. Like we're being abused, and EOS stands for maybe some, maybe like recognition, or just, and maybe even a solution. That's why I love it.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that, it's still so far on the bleeding edge that I forget how involved and how long I've been learning about it. And if I get excited to do it to people outside of just even the EOS community, I'm like a snake oil salesman or something. So I have to like remember that like most people haven't put this much thought and like into EOS. So I don't expect too much anymore from like the rest of even the crypto community, or especially not people outside the crypto community. It's just like, that's why I went to that explanation that I used for DACs, because I had to figure out some sort of solution to tell people what I was doing without having to like talk to them for 6 hours,
I was given the chat, like, they're printing money, man. They're printing money every single day that is backed up by nothing. I'm like, yeah, maybe crypto's doing the same thing, but they're doing it transparently. What is the difference?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what's the difference, man? And I really, like, call me crazy, and like, I can't explain it, or I don't have any, of course, conclusive proof. Everything is just subjective observations, but I really do see, I don't know if I see fiat going away, but I do definitely see digital assets replacing the way that we transact with them. I think that the fact that we can do it in a transparent manner, I think it's cool, man. It's just, it comes from where.
Well, fiat currencies have this basically natural shelf life. If you look back at fiat currency, I don't quote me on this, so I'm just a guy on the internet guessing right now, but I think it's somewhere around like 100, 150 years is kind of like the average life of like a currency. And so, over the history of the world, there's been lots of currencies that have, every nation, state, and every community will come up with their own currency, and they have a life. They last a certain amount of time before they implode. And now with this digital alternative, as these currencies, there's all these currencies around the world, as they implode, the natural replacement is with a digital currency. So that's kind of a one-way street as well. Like, as each fiat currency explodes, now there's a digital currency in its place. And so it seems inevitable that over time, like you're saying, they're going to be replaced. So that's an interesting phenomenon as well. Absolutely. Yeah.
How did you fall into all this stuff?
I fell into it. I was day trading, and that was about 3 years ago. I was like a full-time day trader, and I was hearing about Bitcoin and stuff and just kept putting off looking into it. And I also have an economics degree and was kind of a gold bug, and was just like, but didn't have like, I just had kind of this feeling of being oppressed and like a general like, man, like, okay, I can hold gold and maybe that makes me feel better, but it's like, there wasn't any way to do it. And so I had been hearing about Bitcoin just being in financial stuff. And then when I finally looked into it, it was just like this big light went off, like, oh, that's it. Like I was the perfect person for this. Like I knew what was happening in the financial industry. And I think that happens with a lot of gold bugs as well. And then, so when I found it, it was through an Andreas Antonopoulos, one of his like old YouTube videos, listened to him and was just like sold. And then, so from Bitcoin, obviously kind of natural progression into ETH. And then then BitShares, and then Steemit was earlier in Steemit. And then, from Steemit and BitShares, I started to be really interested in Dan. And then there's that madness in between after that where, 1,000 coins launched recently. And then out of that, I kind of came into EOS because of Dan's vision. Yeah. So, and I like the concept. And also, when studying the code is law versus the intent of code is law, and being a little bit disenchanted by how cumbersome Bitcoin and ETH are, and like coming to some point along in there where it feels like, man, maybe this isn't going to work as well as I thought, or maybe it can only be money and all this other stuff isn't going to work. That's why I think that EOS, even though basically the trade-offs that it uses to be able to scale and to be so agile are worth it for me, because I don't see that in Bitcoin or ETH. And so people always want, like, one of the main knocks on EOS is it's centralized, or that BPs can collude, or that, there's some sort of, it's just like our old government. And I just don't agree with that. On a kind of a base level, I think that in some ways, I don't think that we should throw away our whatever 100,000 years of humans learning how to govern and work together and build societies. I don't think we're complete garbage at it. I think there's some problems with the way we do it, and there's some problems with the incentives. And I think that EOS represents kind of these small or maybe bigger fundamental tweaks, but still let humans interact. And I'm down with that experiment. I'm not willing to throw it in the garbage can, because there's still human interaction in it, especially because it gives so much agility to the blockchain. So, yeah, that's my main kind of core thought about why EOS, and why I think that it's a valid blockchain. Even under a lot of pressure from maximalists everywhere.
It's the community too. It's funny because we were talking before here about just kind of being a content creator in the space. And we're chatting, and if you go back and you look at some of my first videos, not that my new videos are anything spectacular, and I still have a very small following, but my first videos, they were terrible. It was me sitting outside with this weird camera angle and just blathering on. I think that I love the community because people are so willing to talk, man. It's to get an interview in the space. You just hey, do you want to do an interview? And 9 times out of 10, it's shocking. You know what I mean? I remember the first time I asked to speak to Thomas Cox, and he said yes. And it's just people they're people, man, and they're relatable, and they want to talk about this, and it's a cool community. Because much like yourself, I'd kind of done a little bit of trading in other currencies before, and just going into some of those Reddits and just dealing with some of the community is it's just you know what I mean? It's like a deer in headlights. Some of these people are brutal, and I just find that the people who make EOS interesting, the people who are involved in the community, are just generally just good people, and they want to talk, and it's cool.
Yeah, they want it. It's almost like they are, they just want to get as much of the word out and as much content out as possible. And it does seem like people are really grateful for any sort of, any platform. Your show is called Costa Rica Crypto, right?
It is, yeah. And I also
Costa Crypto.
Costa Crypto, yeah. And then we have the Trybe channel, which I've been trying to get you to get some content on. So hopefully we can do some HappyMoneyMan stuff on Trybe, which is more like a community channel kind of type deal. But yeah, it's a little EOS thing. And like we were talking about before too, the cool thing is that it's such a new space, and there aren't a heck of a lot of people who are doing what we're doing. So it's just like, it's a cool time to be in it, man. And it's a cool time to talk to a lot of people out there. And people are just incredibly competent.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll give a shout out and a thank you to Thomas Cox as well. He also came on the EOS podcast. He's a great thinker. He's fun to talk to. He's just it seems like he's had twice as many hours in the day to think through things as I do because he's like got, such a well thought out answer for everything. It's like, okay, damn, So, but yeah, shout out to Thomas. He's does good stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. And Trybe is a killer project, man. I looked into it like maybe a month ago or a few weeks back, and did my first post, and then just recently for this show started catching up with it again to see, to kind of get a feel for around the site. So what's your role there at Trybe? And then why don't you give a description of what Trybe is for people so that they can, so they know what it is, and then we can talk all about it.
Sounds good, man. I originally met Tom like very, very early in the project. And much like anybody else out there, I was just kind of doing videos, and I was using Trybe as like a platform to be able to launch those to get a little bit more exposure. And that's kind of one of the things that I really, really like about Trybe, which we'll get into in a second. But I just spent a lot of time on the platform. It was helping me gain a little bit of traction. And I realized I was making some tokens, and just kind of really started digging into it. Got to know Tom really well, checked out the white paper, and just kind of slowly became more involved. And then since I've become kind of one of the co-founders there, I do like a lot of the social media outreach and kind of community management things. So just essentially what you do, just, connecting content creators, and just creating, just kind of being the community guy. I'm out there doing a lot of different interviews with a lot of different block producers, and of course, just managing some of the guys behind it and having some fun. But I think like the one thing that's really cool about Trybe, and the one thing that I really, really like, is that I used it as a vehicle just to get a little bit more exposure. And I know that on certain sites, it's hard for somebody, and it's hard for somebody to get in and hard for somebody to get seen. And so many people, much like yourself, very talented people, work very, very, very hard to get a following. And all of a sudden I was posting my articles on Trybe, and I was getting a ton of engagement, and I was getting more YouTube subs. So I fell in love with it, and became one of the co-founders with Tom, who invited me to. And my job is just to go out there and talk to people and, create relationships and talk EOS. So it's a pretty good gig, to be honest. It's not bad.
Yeah. Well, I've got some more questions about Trybe, but I've got kind of a piece of advice or an interesting angle for kind of listeners who are content creators. With getting on these social platforms early, like you said, there's this chance to kind of be one of the early people there, and that builds on itself if the platform ends up being adopted. So you look at people like Casey Neistat, who's one of the biggest YouTubers in the world. He didn't do that because he was the best YouTuber in the history of the world. He did that because he was early on YouTube, and so everyone that came kind of saw him there often, and he became, the face of YouTube to some extent. The same thing happened with Twitter. Those people who were initially using Twitter now are like the kings of Twitter. The Steemit, definitely see that in Steemit. A lot of the whales were there because they were there originally. So listeners, that's one of the draws to these new platforms like Trybe, is to be an early adopter. Is it's you're giving yourself kind of a moonshot there, and that's a positive thing. So anyway, just getting that thought out while it was there. Tell people what Trybe, it's a social media site. Tell them kind of how it works and how the interaction is.
So much I don't want to compare it to Steam, because I don't think that's a fair comparison, and I don't think that it's an accurate comparison in a lot of regards. Steam has been around for a long time, very well established. But Trybe is basically like it's a website that you go to and you post, whether it's articles or whether it's movies. You can embed YouTube videos right into there. And then people basically look at your content and they sift through it, because we see so many. The reason why Tom originally created Tribes, there's like typical newspapers are just, they're replaced with clickbait, man. Every time you log into your social media feeds, you know what I mean? You see the most ridiculous stuff. It's guided, it's curated, and it's directed towards you. Everything is analyzed. And it's just really hard to get accurate information out there. It's hard to get peer-reviewed information. So Tribe is like a tokenized peer review platform where you post content, it goes on the main feed, and then people, of course, you know, they'll listen or they'll watch your content, and they'll give you a rating based on that. And of course, the ratings are tokenized. So if you produce an article that gains a lot of attention, you know, you get tokens, which of course are interchangeable on exchanges for whatever it might be. And people get rewarded. It's a social network website, but it's been really well thought out because it involves a lot of various angles, everything from kind of multiculturalism, right? All languages can post on Tribe and be involved in Tribe, as well as kind of, Tom has kind of turned it into something which is a little bit interesting. Like if you're somebody and you own a business and you're looking to have content made, or if you're looking to have like translations made, or if you're looking for people to review a product or whatever it might be, you can actually find these people on Tribe. That's something that we're building into the next build. Of course, right now we're still in beta, so it runs on WordPress, but that's going to be changing and probably sooner than most people think. But it's essentially a network that you go to, you post your content, it gives you good visibility, and you receive tokenized rewards.
Yeah, that's cool. So how do the rewards work? Is it I see that you can give between 1 star and 5 stars. I believe that 1 and 2 stars takes tokens away. What's 3 stars do? And then 4 and 5 gives tokens to the person. Is that right?
Yeah, and it depends on actually how many tokens you have on the site, but we wanted to limit that. We didn't want it to be, if you have 100,000 tokens, your vote, you know, is going to give so many other tokens. Like there's various levels depending on the amount of tokens that you have. So if you go to give somebody else a rating, up to 10,000, I think is the maximum level. Up to 10,000, you have like a fuller vote. So the more your vote counts. If you give them 1 star, they lose a significant amount of tokens. If you give them a 2 star, they lose tokens. If you give them a 3 star, it's no tokens. A 4, of course, you gain some tokens. And then 5, you gain a bunch of tokens. And it really depends on how long you've been on the platform and what your voting weight is at. But the beautiful thing, like I was saying, is that we do kind of have like this maximum voting weight. So it kind of prevents people from spending a ton of time on the platform and then just maybe perhaps like abusing their power. We still want people to be able to come on and produce content and just create this like fair system of peer review. And so far it's worked really well.
Yeah, that becomes an issue with delegated proof of stake or stake weighted voting, is that it builds on itself. So if the voting is in comparison to how much you have, so if I somehow get 1 million Tribe tokens, then all of a sudden I have huge votes. That ends up hurting the system because it makes it unfair at some point. And so it sounds like you guys are doing stake weighted voting, but only to an extent with a cap of 10,000 tokens. So there's only so powerful you can get. Is that right?
You're absolutely right, my friend. And we're working on some new algorithms that are also, because you can upvote comments, you can downvote comments. And we're working on some algorithms right now that are ultimately going to follow kind of the vote of majority. So if somebody's going around maliciously downvoting something, where you know the majority has been calculated for that article to have good content, at a certain point they're going to get penalized for that. So we're also trying to build like this new tokenized voting system that's actually going to be accurate and really start to prevent some abuse. And really, like, it just boils down to, like, man, it's hard to get seen. Like, you know that, and I know that, especially when you're starting out, man. It is so hard to get seen. And there's so many talented people who are just like these closet, you know, cinematographers or closet writers, or people who just have like really, really good insight. And I think that the focus of the platform is to really allow people a fair chance to get their stuff out, to get seen, to gain a bit of a following, and to, you know, to take the money, of course, you know, out of the hands of of some of those larger corporations that we were talking about earlier, kind of redistribute profits to the people who produce the content. Because on a lot of non-tokenized traditional social media systems, that doesn't happen. These people make an immense amount of money off of your content and the stuff that you're doing. So we want to create an environment where people can come, get seen, get heard, and then it just kind of prevents this fair cyclical effect. So they're not getting left out of the loop, and they're not getting penalized because Bobby Joe doesn't like your political stance.
Mm-hmm. How about on the other end of it? If someone's not a content creator, what's their draw to Trybe? And I know, and I guess the overall goal of Trybe is to self-curate or to curate through the blockchain so the good stuff rises to the top. So yeah, go ahead. What are the incentives or the reasons for content consumers to be on the site?
Man, there's some good people over there making great content. Some of the people that we have on our site producing content is fantastic. It's automatically curated, as you're kind of suggesting, right? So the better articles make it to the top, which creates more visibility for those articles. And of course, there's a way to comment and do some kind of peer review. So it's just a way of getting maybe reputable information that's been kind of through the peer review process. And there's some really good reading there. There's some really talented people with some good imagination and some very technical minds who just write some really killer stuff.
Nice. How big, how has it been growing? What's the user acquisition look like at this point? I know it's just in beta, so it's really early.
It is, yeah. I can't really announce anything right now, but we're actually thinking our way around things to speed up the process to our full platform, maybe even cut it in half. Which is going to actually end up providing a better user experience, but we'll kind of announce that as it comes. In the last month, I believe it was the previous month, we went from about 5,000 users up to about 10,000 users. So we're kind of on course to continue that development. So I would say that on average, we're close to doubling every month and a half, our user base. And like I said, kind of the beautiful thing about the EOS community is we're seeing, because we're built on EOS and we support the EOS community, which includes kind of announcements from various DAPs, providing exposure for those guys, giving them kind of a place so they can come on, send out messages. We're really getting a lot of good involvement from people in the EOS space. So it's a great place to go read articles about just about anything. We're going to be introducing some more categories. Right now, we're primarily focused on kind of crypto and technology. But soon we're going to be opening up a plethora of different subjects where people can come in and they can talk about training your dog, or you can talk about whatever appeals to you. So it's been growing fast. And as soon as we open up these other categories to really allow other content in, I think it's going to be an exponential kind of rocket. We've been seeing some really, really good growth, and the quality of our contributors has just been climbing huge.
Nice. I noticed that you guys curate or vet the articles. Is that a manual process, and is that going to continue to be a manual process, or what's that look like as you scale?
Yeah, as we scale, we are considering replacing some of the things with algorithms right now. But currently, because we were in beta, we were having an issue when we first started the site, and people were they were launching a lot of malicious stuff. I mean, everything from sites that were phishing for private keys to questionable material, which I won't get into at this point. But there was a lot of stuff that was kind of coming up to the surface. So being in this stage right now, we do have editors, which kind of goes through a curation process. In order to submit an article, it is 50 Trybe, but you get 100 Trybe for signing up. It goes through an editorial process for somebody in the back end. It's not about it's not about opinions. You know what I mean? It's not like I don't like Martha's article because it's not, I don't agree with her. And that's one thing that we really have worked with our editors to really, really nail down, that you are not judge and jury. We just want to make sure that we're not posting spammy content, malicious content, anything that might involve, racism, sexism, or any form of discrimination whatsoever. So there is kind of that primary peer review process. And as we begin to scale, it's very likely that will move more towards kind of algorithm based. And we're considering some really cool options in the background.
Okay. Yeah. And you can post YouTube videos. I actually had trouble finding that. Is that something that do you do that straight on the site, or actually I found a way, I think, to submit articles or videos to you guys directly. So is that the stage it's at right now, or is that built into the site yet?
No, you go right to the site, you copy and paste your URL and post it in there.
Okay.
Yeah, and it just shows up right in your feed.
Okay.
So yeah, and we do of course have, and this was kind of one of the things that Tom originally brought me on for, which is like a YouTube channel that we're slowly building. We've got some really cool live streaming coming really soon, which I think is going to help rocket ship that. But kind of like we talked about, when I first became a content creator, man, I was like just trying to get my stuff seen. It was hard, and we're such a small, tightly knit community here. And I've always been of the opinion, and clearly you are too, of we're all after the same thing. We want to see EOS succeed, right? Like, we just want to see EOS do well. So we created kind of a community YouTube channel where we're trying to get everybody within the EOS space to work together and submit content and just kind of create more of a cohesive community and support each other. Because for me, I've never really been in competition with anybody. And I never will be, man. It doesn't matter if, I'm not saying that I would be, but if the channel gets huge and Trybe TV gets huge, I'll still never be in competition with anybody. Because really, if we incentivize people to create content and come together, EOS wins. The more material we have out there, the more people we have doing what you and I are doing, EOS wins, and therefore we win, because I'm sure we're all token holders in EOS. So we created this YouTube channel that's just a collaboration of videos from different kind of people. We have some guys on there that are doing TA. Sometimes we get DAPs that want to submit videos. We're talking to a certain block producer. We're going to start sharing videos on Trybe TV, and we just want to build this cool, cohesive network where everybody can kind of get together, get seen, and just create like a little community of content creators and just encourage EOS journalism, because I think that's important, man. And like you and I talked about, that's one of the things that we need to see EOS succeed. So there's Trybe TV as well. We've got some really cool live streaming stuff coming to Trybe TV, and I definitely want to make sure that I get you on there at some point, Brandon, talking about all the amazing contributions that you're currently doing to the community.
Yeah, man. Well, it's this EOS in general definitely has this, as opposed to a scarcity mentality, there's this abundance mentality, even to things like the main chain itself. Like, we can have a bunch of chains. Like, EOS isn't worried about it, I think. And content creators, we can, everyone who's producing content, there's plenty of content being consumed for everyone to be a content producer. It's not like everyone's not in competition in EOS. It's a nice, it's a big community, which is pretty cool. Absolutely. So I had a question about the voting a little bit more there, because what or just like an example, if someone had the cap of 10,000 Trybe, let's say, which is kind of the cap of their power, and they gave a 5-star vote, is there other factors that go into that besides their power and the amount of stars? Is there another part to the algorithm, and what's that payout look like?
The payout is widely depends on the amount of voting power that they have, and of course the stars. So I don't have the exact numbers in front of my head, but of course it really depends on how far along that journey to 10,000 tokens they are. And the reason why we made it 10,000 tokens is because somebody, honestly, like, I'm not going to lie to you, 10,000 tokens to get on Trybe is really not a hard feat. I think that people regularly get anywhere from 500 to 3,000 on their posts. So we just wanted to create some sort of filter to say that this person has been on here, they've made some good stuff, they've worked hard, they're part of the ecosystem, because we didn't want to create something where somebody just has this massive voting weight because they've just been doing it for a long time. So the exact algorithm right now is going to be changing soon. Eventually, with the new voting system, it's going to really attribute for a lot of different things. For example, like, you can't vote for the same person for a consecutive amount of times, because what we were finding is that people were coming together and they were creating these voting rings. Mm-hmm. They were all voting their friends, and the content that was coming to the surface was not kind of the stuff. It just wasn't really. It was more about guys just slamming out articles and telling their friends to vote. So we have some really interesting things coming up with the new algorithm that factors a lot of this in there, as well as kind of like malicious voting. If somebody's just downvoting something, the quality of your article isn't dependent on your opinion. You know what I mean? Like it's an opinion, and we all have opinions, and we should be able to share them. It's dependent on the quality. Like how well developed is your opinion? Did you take the time to really wrap your head around it? How did you articulate it? And how did you express that to other people? So we want to eliminate certain things like maybe people downvoting because they had a different opinion. I think that's a terrible way to kind of base your downvote off of. So we do have some new things coming up with the new rating system. But all I can say is kind of stay tuned in the next month or so. And that algorithm is going to be getting a heck of a lot more complex. And the awesome thing about a beta and the awesome thing about EOS is that if something isn't working, you can change it. And we've had numerous people in our community come to us and just say, hey, we think that we should do this. And we think that this could be better. And the beautiful thing is that we have an opportunity as we're building it to take everything into consideration. So if anybody sees something that isn't necessarily working with the platform, we always encourage you to come into the Telegram and just talk to us, because it's everybody together. Like the way that I always talk to Tom about it is the people on the site are not just people on the site. You know what I mean? Like Trybe is the company, and essentially content makers and content consumers are the customers. Mm-hmm. So we really try to take community input into a lot of these equations, and we try to keep everything a little bit malleable and review it with the community before we implement changes. And that's the beautiful thing about this space, is that you can actually do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw in there when I voted or something, I think that you're only allowed to vote for a person every 3 days or something like that. So that makes sense. What about, are you allowed to self-vote? Does that work? Can you reward your self-tokens?
At this point, we have allowed one self-vote at the start of your article. And that's just kind of the mechanism that we've got to send it off into get seen by everybody else. So you are allowed one initial self-vote. I don't think anybody's going to vote themselves down. And of course, immediately it hits the feed. But we have a really, really engaged audience. That's the beautiful thing about this. We have a lot of people who are out there and engaged. So if somebody has perhaps voted their article in such a way that might not be demonstrative of its overall quality, generally it gets sniffed out pretty quick.
Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, there's so many little angles that pop up as you get. I'm sure, I mean, you know, obviously you're helping build one of these sites, but people are so creative in the ways that they try to, try to game the system. And so as you go, I'm sure you'll keep kind of tweaking over time. But yeah, I mean, I love kind of the improvements over the other models of social media that I've seen out there. And I know that it's only beta, so it's going to keep changing. One of the other kind of attack vectors, if you will, when you get into these social media sites is people creating, say, like 100 dummy accounts and then kind of spam posting and then upvoting with all their accounts along the way. What's that look like on your guys' site, or how do you kind of slow that down?
It's glaringly obvious. It's glaringly obvious to us because at this point it is such a manual process.
Yeah.
This kind of thing happening. It's, and we're not like these monoliths. We're always very approachable. So at times if we see something going down, we'll kind of send the user a note, and generally they'll pop into our Telegram and we'll talk to them. We're like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? We do have it right now so that you can only sign up from one email address with one IP, but let's get real here. We both know, right? A dynamic IP solves any issues with something like that. So I think like the key to just being adjustable and malleable is just maintaining a good rapport with our community. And we try to stay as engaged as possible. We have kind of a large, maybe not a large Telegram group at this point, but our Telegram group is getting significantly larger. And we always encourage people, if you have suggestions, you want to talk about Trybe, come by, visit us there. We are real humans, just like everybody else, behind the computers and building this thing. And we want to get everything hashed out now, right? We have a good idea of how it should be. But was it Mike Tyson who said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face? So it's, we want to be able to, we really take the time to listen to the users, talk to the community, and hash things out so that as we move along, we're really just kind of building the best system that's going to serve the people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is what the beta version's for, and that's why that's also why it's fun to be a part of a beta version. You not only get to create content or consume content, you get to have some input in the direction of what's happening, the future. So that's it's a fun part for people to see. And the Telegram chat's awesome. I popped in there today, and instantly someone said hello, and got a couple questions answered. I mean, it's an active Telegram chat, so that's nice to see. Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. We really try to build relationships with people, and I think that's key. Was it the guy? I remember hearing a story. Like, I'm a big fan of Gary Vee and Tim Ferriss. I listen to a lot of their podcasts, and there was a story of like the people who built Airbnb. Do you know what they originally did back in the day? They went to people's houses and they took the pictures for them. They would go to people's houses and they would shoot the pictures of their living room and they would post them on the site. And it's just, I think that like when you're in the stage that you're in right now, you really have to stay adequately engaged with the audience, and you have to talk to people. You have to build the relationships, right? It can't be this faceless corporation. You really have to take consideration of the people who are using your platform, or else the people are not going to use your platform. So that's kind of interesting as well.
Yeah, for sure. And they were going to take the pictures just so they could physically talk to their customers and ask them questions, right? Yeah. So, so you guys are definitely taking that approach with some hands-on working with the community. I think that's great, man. That's great. Well, I'm loving to see it grow. What's kind of what's on your guys' horizon or your roadmap in through the end of this year and maybe the first quarter of next year?
So currently we've launched kind of a pre-sale, which is happening as well on the site. And we are starting to dev the new platform in the background. Currently we're focusing on just kind of tightening some things up. And it's kind of an open book right now. Like, the plan is ultimately at the start of next year to have the platform launched and completed and ready to go. And I really suggest that if you're kind of wondering what it's about, we have a really good post. Maybe I'll send it to you, which is like a video walkthrough, which is actually Tom talking about some of the cool features that are going to come to Trybe with this new platform. So I'll leave that for a reference. We've got a lot of different things. Like, you can have your own sub-site that is going to be your own site with your own tokens, so people can kind of interact on your own it just becomes like a miniature tribe. So there's like Brandon Tribe, except there's no tribe in it. There's a ton of really cool features coming. It's going to take us a while. So we're starting a lot of that dev work actually right now in the background. The platform should be live next year, and we've got kind of some really cool economic models built into to kind of incentivize people. You'll get a portion of, when the new model goes live, you're going to get a portion of inflation just by staking your tokens. Okay. And we've got some really, really cool features that kind of are going to connect content creators and content makers, and just create like this little bit of a marketplace for people who have talents and perhaps other people to incentivize those talents. So next year, not next year, the following year, this is only 2018. We should have the platform dev by 2020. We are starting on that immediately. And we have been speaking about something that might fast track that to about 4 months from now, but we're still in talks and still figuring things out. So it could be another year. It could be in 4 months.
Cool. Well, that's exciting. How's that blockchain look like? Who validates the blocks as they're being written to the blockchain? Is there witnesses or block producers that are delegated, or what's that look like?
Currently, we will not have block producers, and we will not necessarily have witnesses. And here's why. We are using the blockchain. We're going to use the blockchain as much as possible in the new platform for various transactions. A lot of that stuff is still being worked out right now. But I think that when it comes to EOS, you really you don't want to put anything on there that you don't need on there, because otherwise you're just taking resources from the system. It's not necessarily cost efficient as well. So I think the plan is to try to keep things as light as possible. We'll have internal servers that manage a lot of the information. And the majority of things that are going to be happening on the blockchain refer to kind of the tokenized aspect of it. And that's the plans currently. Things are all malleable, subject to change. But as of right now, it's primarily going to be a lot of the tokenization and and a lot of the voting weight that's going to be on the chain.
Okay, that makes sense. And so does that mean, so would like articles would not necessarily be, the whole article wouldn't be saved on the blockchain? We're talking about blockchain kind of for the monetary aspect. Is that what it sounds like? Okay, yeah. Cool. And how about the, where the tokens that are paid out, if I give someone 5 stars, are there tokens coming out of my wallet, or is that coming out of inflation, or how's that work?
The tokens that are going to get paid out are going to come out of inflation eventually. It's right now we have the total supply is actually 1 billion. As of right now, we've only got about 10 million launched of those tokens. Of course, there will be an inflationary effect that will continue to produce these tokens. Now, I don't want to kind of get into it too much because it's going to get really, really complicated, but we do have a max inflation set of 2 billion. So essentially the people who are earning Trybe right now, Trybe is going to be, I've got to be really careful about the way that I say this for reasons that I'm sure you're aware of. We are going to create a secondary token when Trybe achieves that 2 billion in inflation. That's going to be known as KIN. And KIN will therefore become more of a transactionary approach on the platform itself. The Trybe token will be able to be staked for everything from your own website to your own tokenized system, and it's going to unlock various features on the blockchain, as well as, of course, as I mentioned, you'll get a portion of the inflation rewards. So it'll hit that 2 billion mark, and then we're going to kick in a new token, which will be primarily used for ad revenue and then transacting on the blockchain.
Cool. That's what I like about what you guys are doing is that it's not just a copy of some other blockchain that's done social media. And that's what you see. A lot of people have basically, well, not a lot of people, but there's companies out there that have basically cloned the Steemit blockchain and the Steemit model and essentially used what they're doing and then, put a new wrapper on it. But you guys are tweaking all the incentives. I mean, almost none of the Steemit incentives are the same. So I'm really going to love to see this develop and see what happens. I'll definitely be following along, man. It's cool. And I will start posting more on Trybe as well. I'll start putting my interviews up there and Trybe TV and getting a little bit involved with you guys so that so I'm supporting what you're doing. But yeah, it sounds like a fun project, man.
It is
really cool. Really
we
cool.
would love that. We're all fans of yours. Trust me.
Well, thanks, man. I'm a fan of yours as well. So why don't you? We'll kind of start to wrap it up here. As far as Trybe goes, and then we'll give you a chance to tell people where to find Trybe and what's next. But was there anything we kind of glossed over, or any big parts of Trybe that you want to talk about?
No, I think I'll just say this. Tom took the time and he did a really, really cool walkthrough of the white paper. We just released a new white paper. And as you mentioned, it's not like it's really, and it's like, it's both, I kind of describe my days as a day-long heart attack because it's just, we're adjusting and we're seeing lots of different problems. And because we're not like anything else, there is no model similar to what we're doing that we're really taking the time to discuss some of these things. So we have some really, really cool ideas coming from the platform. All I can do is just implore you guys to go. There's an article, which maybe I'll send you after, which basically is the walkthrough of the white paper. And it really talks about how Trybe is going to stand out from a lot of the different platforms out there. So I just recommend that people go and take a look through that. It really breaks everything down in a manner that's kind of really digestible and fun, and it's interesting. Like the future is good. I'm excited. We're growing quick, and man, it's gonna be an interesting year.
Cool. Well, I'll put a link to that walkthrough in the show notes so people will be able to find it easily. So we'll make that happen. And then is anyone from your team going to be up at the San Francisco Hackathon in San Francisco?
We are discussing that right now. I'm not sure. I personally would love to be there, but we haven't confirmed anything. But we are going to definitely start making it out to some more EOS events in the near future. We're such a global team. We've got like guys in Canada. I'm in Costa Rica. One of our other founders, of course, we've got a lot of founders in the US. We've got another guy who is in the UK. So we're kind of positioned everywhere, but at some point we're going to need to get together and come make an appearance. It probably won't be San Francisco, but it'll be sometime soon.
Cool. Well, I'm going to be at the San Francisco Hackathon. I'm really excited. It's coming up not too long from now, 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now. And then also the day after the San Francisco Hackathon, there's a scaling blockchain conference. I'll put a link for that also. That's the Monday in San Francisco after the San Francisco EOS Hackathon. And I'll be the MC at that conference, and a bunch of block producers will be there, and a bunch of EOS community will be there. Some good talks going on. So if you're going to be at the SF Hackathon, then check out the scaling blockchain thing on Monday. And I'll put a link for that in the show notes as well. So there's my 2 cents. And as far as Costa Rica goes, man, I just saw your recent interview on Costa Rica Crypto, your show with I think it's called EOS Surf.
Yeah.
That's cool. Can you give like a brief description of what that is? Because it interests me.
It's really neat, actually. And honestly, Brandon, we'd love to have you out there too. That would be amazing.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, come out and do some of the media there. EOS Surf is like, I've spent a lot of time kind of getting to know the guys from EOS Costa Rica, who are block producers, of course, block producer candidates rather, and they're just a really good group of guys. They've got some really good experience doing a lot of this stuff for a long time, bare metal servers. And they're very, very kind of Costa Rican, Tico, good values, very accepting. So they've created this thing, which is they're inviting people to come out for these EOS surf camps, because much as you know, a lot of us spend a lot of time behind our laptops or behind our computers. So they're inviting people down. They're going to be like these, these events that are, I think they're like 5 to 10 days. I'm not sure exactly. And people are going to come down, and we're going to go out. We're going to explore Costa Rica. I'm going to break out the drone, and we're going to go have some fun. We're going to climb some volcanoes and spend some time on the beach surfing. And just like enjoy, because man, it's beautiful out here. And that's one thing that I will say. And then half the day outside hanging out, and the other half the day is going to be like very focused workshops on everything from like EOS development and networking and just kind of hanging out. So EOS Surf, if you get a chance, it's EOSURF.com, and that's put on by the guys from EOS Costa Rica, who are some really, really cool guys. And it's going to be fun, man. I think people will, if you're an EOS enthusiast, if you're a developer, if you're into EOS, I really suggest you go check that out, because it's going to be a heck of a time.
Cool. Well, there's our shout out to EOS Costa Rica and EOS Surf, their project. That is cool. And where are you at in Costa Rica? And are you in?
Yeah, I'm in a place called Playas del Coco, which is in Guanacaste. Guanacaste is like I think people think of like Costa Rica and they think exotic, but most of the people here speak better English than I do. All the regular amenities are there. It's just 100 times more beautiful than some of the places where I come from. So incredible country, man. And Guanacaste is exceptionally, exceptionally safe. I've done a lot of traveling in my time all over the world, and I don't think I feel as safe at my home in Canada as I do out here. So if you get a chance, come check out Guanacaste. Costa Rica is beautiful, and man, it's quite the life.
Is that the southern west coast? Is that where that is? Yeah.
Southern, yeah, absolutely. Southern west coast of Costa Rica. But no, sorry, the northern coast. I apologize. Yeah, okay. We're north. We're just before Nicaragua. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah. I go check out Nicaragua all the time, but super safe, beautiful. All of Costa Rica is very beautiful. Man, I love it here.
Yeah. Well, I'm a huge fan of Costa Rica, so I'm gonna have to put that's going back on my list of EOS destinations. So, cool, man. Well, it was great having you on the show. Where is the best place for people to find EOS Trybe? Where's the best place to find Trybe? And then where's the best place to find your show? What are the links that you want people to check out?
You can find me on YouTube at Costa Rica Crypto. And if you want to come check out Trybe, the best place, of course, is going to be in our Telegram, which is, I can kind of send you a link for after, Trybe.One, so TRYBE.ONE is, of course, that's the website address for the platform. And we're always in Telegram. We're super active. We're always chatting, as you know. So stop by, come check us out. And I just wanted to say, Brandon, thanks so much for having me on today, man. I've been watching your show for a long time. I think you do a really great job, and I think you make some really, really good contributions in kind of the space. And it's cool to be able to sit down and chat with another guy. I think you're doing a really great job, and just thank you from both myself and the rest of the community and Trybe, and we look forward to having you more on our platform.
Well, thank you. Same to you, man. I appreciate your show as well. I watch it, so it's all about EOS, man. So we're doing fun things here. It was good to hang out with you also, my crypto friends, and thanks for attending the EOS podcast here with me and Matt from EOS Trybe and EOS Costa Rica, and we'll catch you next time. So pura vida.
Pura vida.
Money is not the prime asset in life. Time is, and your time is just